Hello, welcome to episode 28. Brenda, 28
Wow.
episodes.
Yes.
That is amazing. And that's great. Today's episode is Are you listening? Can you hear me? And are you listening to your environment, to your surroundings? Or do you need to only get your point across? Or are you a fixer? Oh, somewhere I definitely like to drift into. So, hi, my name is Charlie Collins. In this episode today, we will focus on listening. And I am the co founder of the Thriving Blind Academy. I am a speaker, I am an author, and a coach. And as I say, I'm very grateful to be here with you today.
Good morning, Charlie. It's good to see you. Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda. I'm the founder of Time for a 10. We are an emotional awareness, emotional intelligence coaching service. We teach people how to challenge their conditioned thinking and their belief system by inventorying their disturbances, because that's the way to get to the root of what's really going on in your 0 to 7 years of programming. That is your subconscious brain. And that allows you to have more freedom and more control over your environment and the ability to listen, actively listen. So I'm excited to be here and talk about this today.
Yeah, we're always excited to do this.
We are. I love doing this.
I like the pre-talk leading up that we do before we hit the go live button. And then we go, oh gosh, we're going off course. Let's get back on course.
Here we go.
And that is, you said that we help you and listen to you to help you see more clearly of conditioned thinking that could be running your life, that you don't see it. You don't know that it is it. Is it that I'm a loser, that I'm stupid, I'm a bad person? No, it's called conditioned. It's called programming. It's you know this very well, Brenda, from knowing how to code and write a program. You write a string of things that when you hit go, it's absolutely going to do the same thing over and over. Talk about computers, talk about live streaming. You know, when I hit go, it better be doing what it's all supposed to, because there's an actual program telling it what to do. And that was how my life had become. I became a program. So listening was not a talent of mine. Fixing and getting to the point, I'm still a little like that, if I'm honest, but and just saying whatever was a program that I had formed, whether it started at, as a 0 to 7 years old, and nobody, first of all, I had nothing to share for many years of my life. So I didn't offer anything. I didn't answer questions in school. I didn't raise my hand and ask questions. Even if I knew the answer, I was afraid to answer it, because what happens if it was just a little bit wrong? I would look dumb. So I didn't have anything to share. So I didn't really know about this whole skill, the art of listening, because those, I believe, in my experience and growing in life, is that those who took the time to truly listen to me were those that could help me the most move from my programming and thankful neuroplasticity be able to form new thinking and listening skills.
Awesome, Charlie. I love that intro about listening. I do believe, for me anyway, in the present moment, today, I have noticed that people have become less interested in listening. And my theory on that is that today people are living in an activated state because of the way that our environment is right now, with healthcare issues and political system issues and social issues going on, economic issues going on. And that leaves us in a place of uncertainty and fear. Really, it's in a place of fear. And when I'm in an activated state, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about staying safe. I'm thinking about myself, only myself, and I'm looking for ways to stay safe. So I'm really not engaging with the person next to me when I'm in an activated state. I'm doing what I need to do to get through the conversation, to get to the end so that I can go back to focusing on staying safe. Now, I'm not like that all the time, because I have learned some really incredible tools that teach me how to recognize when I'm in an activated state. So I do the work to get deactivated so that I can participate in the present moment with the person that's sitting next to me. But it took work and effort and a really good coach for me to learn how to even recognize I was in an activated state. Because when I was having a conversation with somebody, I didn't realize I was frightened. I didn't realize that I wasn't paying attention, that I wasn't in the present moment with that person. I was just running that program. I was just doing what I always did in a conversation with somebody.
Brenda, by excuse me, by activated state, are you talking about I'm running on autopilot, unconscious competence of beliefs, behaviors, thoughts, or are you even kicking in a little bit of the nervous system activation? What activated state are you referring to?
I'm talking about the nervous system activation when the amygdala is firing and telling me I'm not safe. Your fight or flight mode is running because the environment isn't conducive to feeling safe and secure. And if you look at our environment today with everything that's going on in the world, I mean, COVID, look at what happened with COVID. And people have not come back from that yet because it was unimaginable. It was unimaginable that a pandemic could happen. We are so ingrained in our daily lives and our daily routines and what we expect to happen on any given day. And then something like COVID comes and wipes out all of that foundational security, which wasn't real to begin with. You and I know this wasn't real to begin with. Wipes away that foundational security, and now you're frightened. You're in an activated state. Your nervous system is activated. You're in your fight or flight mode. And when I'm in my fight or flight mode, guess what's not working? My frontal lobe, where I process information and I have discernment about what's going on. I'm reacting from that place. So when I'm reacting from that place, where are my reactions coming from? My reactions are coming from my 0 to 7 years of programming. It's coming from my past experiences. None of that is coming from my present moment experience, which is right here, right now. I tell my clients to look at their feet and stay where your feet are. Right here, right now. Am I safe? Yes. Am I secure? Yes. Is there anything chasing me? Is there a bear chasing me that I need to run from? No. Are you okay? Yes. And so I have tools that bring me down, meditation tools, inventory disturbances tools, things that have gotten me into an activated state. I have tools that get me out of that activated state so I can get back to a place of present moment existence and have some discernment, some honesty about the situation at hand. And this way I can be present for other people. And this comes into play too when I'm working with a client that may have had an experience that I had that used to trigger me. I'm no longer triggered by somebody else's pain. And we'll get into that because that's a whole different thing in a minute. And before you respond, Charlie, the chat's going crazy over here. So let me say hi. So hi, Barb. Barb is here. Nice to see you. Hi, Johnny. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. Linda's online here. Good morning to everybody who's chatting in the chat. We can't get to all of them because then we wouldn't have a podcast, but we just want to thank you all for being here. So go for it, Charlie.
It just means that you would have to pay attention to it. And then which would cause you're the type that when you do pay attention, you have to disconnect from the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, all that's going on. And I was going to say, while you were talking, I started to think, geez, do I need gas for my tractor? And I think I have a good blade on my edger. I want to do the sidewalks today. And, my lawn isn't that long, and I'm only kidding. I was listening. But did you ever find yourself when somebody's talking to you that you're running another story like blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I don't want to hear what you're saying, even though I'm in this space and you're obviously talking to me, but I'm off doing something else. I'm thinking about something else. And, I don't think you can tell, but oh boy, can we tell. you know, you know that experience of oh Brenda, I was in my inbox and I was trying to schedule, oh, this is what you do, Charlie. I know I have that experience all the time and you just got to do this and do that, but you didn't even let me finish. I didn't get to tell you exactly what my problem was, but you just stepped right over it and that's it. Next, what else you want to talk about? Because I'm not going to listen. I'm only going to fix you. And in that process, I don't even feel heard. I don't feel like you even care. And I'm like, well, you're not somebody I'm going to talk to. Now, I'm not saying that's you, but I'm saying that was me. And I still can be that person because I'm a fixer. And why is that? Well, I have a mind that sees a system. How can that system be improved? How about this process? How can I organize? How can I make things better? How can I improve the quality of my day, my life, my existence, and where my feet are? And and part of me thinks, how could you not want that? Whoever that person is, how could you not think that way? And I remember when somebody told me that there isn't we're all unique. Each person maybe has a different way of combining thoughts, coming up with solutions. I'm like, what? You mean people don't think like me? How? So I feel sorry for them. and that isn't the truth, but that irritating person that just you almost don't want to talk to because they talk over you.
So it's so funny, Charlie. So for those of you on the chat that don't know, there's a great YouTube channel called at time for a 10. So an at sign time for a 10, and we do free videos. And there's 2 videos out there exactly on this topic. We talked about boundaries last week. So for the person, there it is. That's our website. You can book a coaching session, and then there's our YouTube channel. So for people that talk on and on, I did a video on this because my phone rang and I saw who was calling and I didn't answer it. I was like, oh, I'm not answering that. It's going to be an hour-long conversation. And I didn't want to have an hour-long conversation. So instead of answering the phone and setting a boundary during the conversation saying, I only have 15 minutes, or setting a boundary during the conversation to have my needs met during the conversation, I chose not to answer the call, which is running from the problem, right? So that's about setting boundaries. When someone is going on and on and on, and we kind of zone out because we don't want to listen, you can set a boundary with that person there. You could redirect the conversation. We don't like to do that because we're afraid of what other people are going to think of us, or what if they get upset. Well, you're not responsible for their feelings. You're responsible for yours. And the other thing that you're talking about, the fixing and the, wanting to get to the solution, what I discovered was that was me not being able to be comfortable experiencing what they are experiencing. I don't want to feel their pain. I don't want to feel their frustration. I don't want to feel their problem. It's not my problem. That's my own selfishness and my unwillingness to be of service, because I'm not getting anything out of this conversation. But this person needs me to hold space for them as they describe what their issue is that they're coming to you for help with. Do you know what I mean? And you can, even in those circumstances, you can still set boundaries around the conversation. You don't have to allow somebody else to take you hostage, and not letting them fix it. Not letting them fix it empowers them to fix it on their own. You can share your experience, strength, and hope, and that's what we do, but we don't give them the answer. When I'm coaching somebody, I never give them the answer. I walk them through a series of open, honest questions that actually lead them to challenge their thinking, so they see it differently. And we learned that in the process that we went through, that when we introduce a disturbance by asking honest, open questions, they can figure it out on their own. Right? Because I don't want someone relying on me for answers. That's the wrong place to go for answers. You already have them inside of you. So we show them how to access those answers.
My turn.
Hi, Carrie. Good morning, Carrie.
Yeah, and one of the selfishness, self-centeredness that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear. I know not one person listening or people I interact with, not one person wakes up and says, "I am looking forward to be driven by fear today, only thinking of me, my needs, and taking actions to feel better all day." I know that nobody says that, but we can become that over time, and it becomes a program like, uh-oh, like you said, I'm in fight, flight, or fear, and which triggers me to put up a wall, to not hear you and not offer information. Are we a producer of harmony or confusion? There's people that try to talk, and I'll try to help them to form or get around what they truly want to get into. And here's something. I learned in a conference once, the they were doing a skit on the stage about, the person would share something and the person would say, "Yeah, I know, I've had that experience, this is what I did." And never even like talked or felt any empathy or compassion, just was ready to move on or just kind of talk down to the person. And then this leader said, "How about asking the person, okay, you want to go over something, you want to talk about your day, or you want to talk about something? Is this something you just want me to listen to? Is this something you want, if I could offer some experience or advice? Is that something you want? Or do you want to form a solution to fix this, or how to approach that boss that sent you that email? Is that how you want this?" And the person could say, "I only want you to listen." Okay. How long is that gonna be? No, I'm only kidding. And then, and that's hardest for me because I wanna be a part of the solution, but and I gotta remember that when I'm in a discussion with someone, like, they might not wanna hear anything. They just need to process, like you said earlier. It's like we talk about things, and I'm looking at it, and I'm starting to see it more clearly because I'm verbalizing it. Writing helps. Typing maybe helps, but getting to somebody that isn't going to just jump on and try to fix it, offer their opinion and their advice. And you got to be careful who you talk to too. Do you really want advice from a person, a certain type of person? Is that person living the quality of life? Do you look up to them? Do you want, and I don't mean it like materialistic, do you want what they have? I don't mean it that way. I mean the way they process, the way they're at peace, the way they just look content. They're not restless and irritable. They're just happy and in a space that it's like, "Hey, how do you get there?"
Yeah, yeah. I was talking about the that video that we did called "Feelings Fix It, Feelings Fix It," and I had this experience with my daughter, right? So, and she was an adolescent, and she was all overwhelmed with something, and I would offer her a solution, offer solution, offer solution. And every time I offered her a solution, she would say, "Oh, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work." Have you had people like that? That won't work for me. That won't work for me. And so in one of my classes, the professor brought up this exact same example. And what he explained was people like that, right? That you keep giving them solutions and they completely reject them. They're not looking for you to really help them. They want you to feel exactly what they're feeling. So they create a hopeless, helpless situation with you in that conversation in order to get you to feel what they're feeling. And the remedy to that is, and that's the person you're talking about that really doesn't want help in that moment or advice in that moment, which I don't give advice, but what they're looking for is for you to identify with their pain. And we can do that by asking them, well, what does that look like for you? How does that feel for you? What kinds of things happen in your body? How do you react when you're feeling that way? Like you peel the onion with them and get them to disclose what's really going on internally in that situation. And that's how they feel validated. And now they start to become, because now they're getting out of their activated state, they start to become a little more open-minded because they're becoming less activated just by moving that energy out. And you're right, that energy can be moved out by writing it, by sharing it with another person, without just having someone hold space for you to just get it out. You know what I mean? There's some activity here, Charlie. Give me a second. Okay. People aren't feeling safe. Yeah, it's difficult. This whole not feeling safe right now in the environment that we're in is really challenging. So get a coach. We'll help you through that.
So, excuse me, what happens? How do you react when you believe that thought? That's what you're saying. And it's like, and who would you be without the thought? Wait a
Great
minute.
question.
Yeah. And you look at that and it's like, how do I react? What happens when I believe that thought? I get tense. I get tight. I start to put the walls around my thinking, and I start thinking about me. I get angry. And it's like, well, who would I be without that thought? Well, that's not fair. Don't ask me that question. I need to have this thought. I need to noodle with it, and I need to get upset with it, and that's really how simple it can be, but it takes some time. Let me just say, you talk about environment. So, the people when you're talking to them and they glance at their phone.
Yes.
No, that's a no-no.
Yes.
And that one, I won't even tolerate that. Like you just told me you are not important to me. I don't care what you have to say. This notification is more important to me. Now, do they know that? Or is their phone that, which I also sometimes call the idiot box, is that thing become their higher power?
Yeah.
Because it zippity zaps, and it's like it severs anything in their brain, and that they have to go look at it. And most people that I notice, it's in their hand all the time. So it's like, glance at it, glance at it, glance at it. It's like, I won't tell you what, I'll smack it out of the hand, but but I'm also legally blind, so I might not see it, but you're not getting away with it, because I can tell. That, Brenda, it's so rude, because the person sharing just feels like, God, I was starting to get honest. I thought I was, and this person cares more about Johnny, who just, ate a burger in Colorado, like, who gives a crap? And that's also what's going on. Before I go to the next one, I will stop there.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Because what you just described is, for me, it's clear as day, is addiction. It's addiction. So we can talk about the blue light in the phone. That's addictive. It's designed to be addictive. We can talk about all the ways that device has been designed to be addictive. Forget about the social media programs that are running on it that are designed to be addictive. It's addictive. Mm-hmm. So every time you glance at that phone, someone's trying to reach you. Someone sent me a text, dopamine. You see something on social media you like, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, all day long. It's not about us. You're not even a blip on the radar when it comes to people and their phone addictions. Right. There's nothing, like, I'll take my phone when I come home from work and I'll put it by my computer and I will go do what I need to do, and I'll check it a couple hours later. Like, I have learned to do that because it doesn't matter. Whatever's coming in on the phone can wait. It's not that important to me anymore. But I had to become aware that my phone was a device that was designed to be addictive, for me to understand that it's up to me to change my behavior with the phone, because I wasn't thinking about other people when I would look at the phone. I wasn't. You wouldn't be a blip on my radar. Do you see what I mean? So what do you think about that? Is it personal?
My daughters would text me, and then like 8 seconds later, my phone or something might ring. Dad, you didn't answer my text. What? And I get that your world is instant snapping, chatting, and all that garbage. I mean, the wonderful stuff. I said, but 24 hours. If you text me, I have 24 hours to respond. If you don't like that, don't text me. Yeah. That's my boundary, period. Yeah. And or write me a letter, and then I'll write back. and that'll take more time. But if you need to know something, of course, if there's there's harm, or you had an accident or some reason you have a flat you need, then I will respond quicker. But other than that, nope. I don't even look that often. Brenda, I also want to talk about environment, and not, I want to talk about our local, our surroundings. So, I've noticed, like, when you're in tune with your car, it sounds a certain way when you're in the transmission, the motor, so when you become awake, you know how that vehicle sounds. So when it sounds a little different, you might want to pay attention to that. Another area is my body. Now, we talk a lot about, can you think greater than you feel? Because if we're driven by thinking only from our feelings, we're in trouble. But is my body, is there a part of me that's telling me I need to pay attention to that? And have I ignored things like that which have gotten me in more trouble or more pain? Yes. So now I do my best to pay attention to my body. And it's in, like, my tractor,
Mhm.
it's 24 years old and it runs like a brand new tractor. But I know if it makes a new noise or something doesn't sound right, I pay attention. And because I rely on this listening skill. It's an absolute. If you ever go out to your garbage can or something in the dark, I go to do something and I hear in the woods. I don't see it. I don't want to. I'm not going to do that right now. Most people will pay attention to that type of thing. I'm talking about the smaller, more. You know how many people I've worked with? It's like, oh, I didn't even know. I'm like, but is that true? Well, yeah, I guess I did notice it was making a funny noise,
Yeah.
or I was feeling a pain in my hip, but I chose to ignore it.
Yeah.
And the consequences are much graver than taking responsibility.
Yeah. They are. You're talking about rigorous honesty and being present with yourself. Being present with yourself. That's a learned skill these days. It's a learned skill. There's a good question, Charlie, here in the chat. So, what if the person, Carrie says, but what if the person said, excuse me, I do need to check this message? How would you feel about that? If somebody in a conversation with you said, excuse me, I need to check this message.
I would ask, is that true?
Is that true?
I
Because
would ask that. Then I might ask, how do you react? What happens when you believe you need to check that? And then I might ask, and who would you be without that need to have to check that? And what does that mean? Like, oh, I get it. Maybe one of your children's on the operating table. Oh, I get it. But I am definitely, yes, there is an exception to the rule. So I was in the corporate environment for a little while, which I couldn't stand. But I went out and I did things for different corporations after I sold my company. And I was running a meeting, and there was about 12 people, the marketing and sales department, and and I said, oh my gosh, these people have their phones. And some were flicking them, and then some just leave them down on the table, because the force field of needing to make sure my wife doesn't need a loaf of bread, and I need to know 18 hours before I go home. But anyway, so I said, all right, everyone, anyone that has a phone in here, please go back to your desk and put it on your desk, and then come back into this meeting, because I'm not going to waste my time talking to people who aren't listening. And I was the chief marketing officer. The president of the company was starting to beat his sweats going down, like, oh. I said, well, you didn't hire me to talk to people half listening. And it worked out incredible. It became a new code of the corporation. No cell phones were ever allowed into any meeting.
Yes.
Because unless one of the guys' wives was pregnant and she was, the water broke. That's a need that you might need to know. So exceptions are always made.
Yes. And I think you bring up a really good point. Um, Two things. One is you can always set a boundary when you're with someone in a conversation. Like when I'm doing a coaching call, when I'm doing a coaching session with somebody, I always let them know ahead of time that, we're not going to be interrupted by text messages or phone calls or things like that. The second thing is, so you can set your boundary up front with what your expectation is with regard to being interrupted by the phone. And you also, I think it's really important to make exceptions for people that actually do have a need. Like my son was in a wheelchair for a long time and he was going to school, and I needed to be able to answer that phone or be able to check to see if it was the school calling, if there was an issue with my son. So in cases like that, I think it's really important to make exceptions, because it's not never black and white, right? There's what's between black and white. Most people say gray, and it's not. It's the entire spectrum. So you're right. There's definitely exceptions,
but very rare.
but the exceptions, we have to be open-minded to what those exceptions are, and because we can't. The thing is, Charlie, we can't change other people. So we can advocate for ourselves. We can set boundaries. We can let people know by communicating what our expectations are with regard to that. And then, some people are just not going to change, and that's a whole different podcast.
No, that's a whole different. I'm not talking to you. Next. My favorite word is with those types of people is next.
Yeah.
That's okay. I get it.
Yeah.
I don't resent you. I get it. You are in your own little world. You only want to blame, complain, rationalize, justify. You want to make excuses. You want to puke your stuff out. You absolutely. Hey, did you ever think of I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do And it's like, next. I have no business being in your world because you don't want the help, and I don't need your toxic crap in my world.
It's Charlie.
What? Did you hear
rigorous honesty? Rigorous honesty. Yes. And when those people come into my awareness, I deal with it in the same way, just a little bit more loving. A little bit more loving, but I'm clearly not ready. Clearly not ready. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And Kristen says in my in the Thriving Blind Academy, my co-founder and partner, she always says, good cop, bad cop. Guess who's the bad cop?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I get it. And that's, if I had I needed a little bit more of an aggressive touch on to help me. In the very beginning of this, you said we help people see their conditioned thinking.
Yes.
And I needed disruption. Yeah. I needed someone to say, you need to, help me and disrupt to stop that flow of energy in my brain connecting to the end result thought that wasn't serving me. So I needed more of the bad cop, a little more aggressive coaching to help me to shut up in my mind, not my mouth so much, and take a step back and say, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. I never looked at it that way. I became more open. You mentioned that earlier. I started, saying, let me take a new look at this. We all have a pair of glasses. We all have a paradigm. Remember back, I don't know, 10, 15, it was all about the paradigm shift. What we see the world as we are. That's a truth. That is a truth. We are what we eat. Dang it. You are what you think. Henry David Thoreau. Is it? No, one of those guys. Yeah. Yeah. And Henry Ford says, if you think you can or can't, you're right. Yeah. So, when we hit the I can't. And I do an exercise in my presentations, and it's the I can't, I won't exercise. And so we list 3 things I can't do. I can't get to the bottom of my inbox. I can't get to the gym 3 times a week. And I can't seem to eat healthy when I travel. Okay. And then the partners get back together and I say, remove the word can't and put won't. I won't. Oh! You know, and that's just that I'm not listening to the truth, because when I say I can't, my higher self says, please. You're going to really try to lie to yourself, and you're
Right.
going to really anchor in and then, detach and pretend I can't do something. Who's that servant? Come on, Charlie, shut up, higher self. you know, you said it earlier too, Brenda. If you truly want the answers, they're already a part of who you are. You were
They
born.
are. They're there waiting for you to find them. There's two ways that when somebody's in that mode of blaming, complaining, that they're really not looking for help. They're just stuck in that 0 to 7 programming. One thing I ask them, I'll interrupt them and say, how old do you feel in this moment? What do you mean, how old do I feel? I'm 45. I'm like, no. In this moment of complaining and blaming, in this moment of activation, how old do you feel? And when they really stop and think about it, they pick an age. Well, I feel like I'm 10. And I don't say, well, that's how you're acting. I don't say that. I say, what was going on at 10 years old? Because really, that's what you're living in this moment. Yeah, you would say that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're living in this moment. In this moment, that's what you're living, is that old experience. And the other thing I ask them is similar to what you say, like, what do you get out of believing that? Because there's a belief system that's running that isn't true. Usually I'm a victim. Look what they did to me. When they're just doing it, they're not doing it to you. They do it to everyone, right? But we internalize that. What are you getting out of believing that this person did that to you? Because you're getting something out of it, which is why you're making the choice to believe it. So those are two ways that you can penetrate that cycle of it's all about me and everyone's doing this to me and I'm a victim and the world sucks and my life sucks, and the activation is to just get them to pause and redirect them inward to the tape that's playing. It's a tape that's playing. It's an old story. I'm going to look at the chat for a minute because it's really filling up today.
Brenda, I have a question for you. Do
Yes.
I have you or the Blindsided on the screen?
You have Time for a 10 and YouTube at Time for a 10 on the screen.
Goodbye.
Blindsided podcast at Charlie Collins 1. Subscribe today.
I just forgot which scene. You can build scenes within this software, and I forgot which scene I had on. So thank you for being my eyes.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So hello to Trish. And there's a suggestion that when we offer clients suggestions on how to be more attentive or disattentive to their phone, right? When asking them not to pay attention, that we just make sure we tell them it's our opinion, that we're not telling people how it should be done, that we're making suggestions to better the experience for you and the person that you're engaging with at the time. Not a bad suggestion.
Yeah. Oh, Brenda, it's kind of like I'm standing, I'm at 15,000 feet. The door of the plane is open, and the person next to me suggests I put the parachute on before I jump. It's a good suggestion. Yeah, no. But,
but I agree. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, especially when it comes to the phone, because there's a whole array of circumstances when it comes to this technology. Some people need it. Some people are addicted to it. Some people have to check it because they have circumstances. But when we're talking about things like this, it is important to say, this is my opinion. This is how, right? This is how I prefer that when we're working together, I got this string hanging out of my shirt. I prefer that when we're working together, that these are the boundaries I'd like to have respected. Absolutely. Absolutely. You set your boundaries up front. And then you know what? That's how, when you are honest with people up front, then you don't have resentments about how they behaved after. Unless they completely violate your boundaries. And that's a whole nother conversation. We did a boundaries podcast. Go listen to it. But setting the boundary up front about what your expectation with them, engaging with their phone while they're working with you, is important. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's basically the four agreements. You make an agreement,
Yep.
and you honor each other's space in that agreement, and
Yes.
it always works out better. And if you have a different agenda, or you have expectations of others, or resentments on layaway, if I expect you to be someone you're not, or behave in a certain manner because that I like it that way, but I don't set a boundary, I'm not clear, and I don't put up an agreement, you know, or a contract between us. You know, I don't mean it that crazy, but that's what
Absolutely.
that's what works. I had a neighbor, a young boy that had some issues. He had a low self esteem. He had a mouth on him, like he wanted to be heard. It was obvious he was not being heard at home. He was not being listened to. He was being talked down to. So when he was in my home, he had some issues. Now, I'm not here to discipline, but every time I could hear the kids in a room, and somebody would say, "Oh, one time I was riding my bike and I did a long skid and it was so cool." "Oh, yeah? Well, I have fatter tires and I was doing it once at 35 miles an hour and I did a longer skid than you." Okay. Nobody cares, but thank you. And every time he had to overdo it, he had to trump it, he had to have a better story because, I felt so sorry for him. I didn't feel so sorry. I really wanted to go wring his parents' necks, but I knew it wasn't him. It was him trying to fit in and hey guys, I'm somebody. Please like me. My skid was a foot longer than your skid. I'm somebody. It's
Yeah.
like, ouch. And I just want to say on this phone topic, if you think there's an issue, or you find you're not listening to your children, your spouse, because in the back of your mind, that little I box is calling at you, remove all social media for 30 days. Take all the apps off your phone and disconnect from it for 30 days. If that's a problem, one of our upcoming podcasts called Addiction will talk about that.
Yes.
Now, I now that's easy for me. I would be please challenge me to that. I'll remove it all. I don't have it on my phone to begin with. So someone recently texted and said, "Hey, go to Instagram." And I get irritated when someone calls Instagram Insta. So anyway, they told me to go there and watch this and click on this and that. And I texted back. I said, "You texted me. My phone is used for making phone calls and texting. I do not use it for as a computer. Thank you." And they said, "Okay, we will remove you from our list." Even better.
Yep. Yep. My son has really strict boundaries like that when it comes to phones. He doesn't even want to be involved in group texts, and I can't say I blame him.
Oh,
It's his personal preference. He, like you, uses that for business and for important phone calls and the occasional text message, but he doesn't like to communicate that way. He's an
and
in-person kind of person. Call me. Call me. I love that personally. Call me.
I know, because Snapchat is not communicating with somebody. Texting isn't communicating. How about the person? And Brenda, I have no problem with people using their phones for social, for connection, for whatever it works for them. I just made a challenge. If you seem like you're not a really good listener, or you're not hearing your children, your spouse, your business partners, maybe challenge yourself, remove all that stuff on your phone, to really work at active listening, really truly care about, and I'm not saying you don't. So this isn't about pointing fingers, or I mean,
No,
if somebody ever
not at
came
all.
at me and said, "You're stupid because you don't know how to listen," I wouldn't have wanted help. But hey, you want to get more value out of connecting with people, a deeper connection, and this caring and stuff I didn't experience much.
And it's you bring up a really good point, Charlie, and that's why we decided to do this podcast, is because we're talking about, are you listening? Are you really listening to the person next to you who's talking to you? Are you even listening? Or are you looking at your phone? Are you talking over them? Are you waiting for them to hurry up and finish so you can get back to your phone or whatever it is you're doing? Are you in the present moment with somebody? And if you are in the present moment with somebody, are you able to maintain that? Because it's important. Technology has impacted social connection. We call it social media. It isn't social at all. Has technology impacted your ability to socially to connect to another human being energetically, emotionally, in the present moment? Are you aware when you're in the present moment with another person? And if not, that's really what we're trying to address today. Why aren't you actively listening? What are the barriers to active listening? What are the barriers to not being able to make a connection, a real connection with another human being in the present moment? And one of the biggest barriers to that is the social media and phone addiction. Dead on. And we talked about the dopamine hits. That's science. There's science behind this. Dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Someone likes my video, dopamine hit. A new subscriber, woohoo, dopamine hit. Like you get addicted to those dopamine hits, and then you find, you're away from social media for a little while, and your brain's like, oh, it's starting to shrivel. I need more dopamine. You get right. It's the same thing as, the ease and comfort you get from taking that first drink. It's the same thing. It's just presenting differently. The addiction, the porn, the drugs, the alcohol, the food. We talk about food trauma. We want to do a podcast on food trauma. People are eating even when they don't want to eat. I can't stop doing this. Same. It's all the same thing. It's the same thing.
Well, read Dopamine Nation and realize, and Andrew Huberman, he also talks a lot. We are dopamine addicts, and we're constantly looking for that spurt. And if you can detach or start lessening that, you will become healthier. Yeah. And I didn't even know. It's like, let me find 5 people to text just because I need somebody to care about me today. So, hey, Bob, how are you today? What's going on in your world? And Bob doesn't respond in 8 seconds. And, oh, Bob doesn't like me. I'm a loser. It's like, if that's my world, oh, God, am I in trouble? Yeah. But recognizing that is huge.
Huge.
And one other thing, another thing that irks me, since I've been a bit irky today.
Charlie.
Is when you text someone and they don't answer properly. Like, would you like ham on your sandwich? Would you like a special kind of roll? Would you like to? Yeah, I'll take American cheese. See you at noon. You know what I mean? People don't answer the questions that you put into a text. They want to avoid. They want to answer it in the way they feel like communicating, or they don't see it. I mean, they don't hear it. Maybe, however, obviously your mind's eye forms all that. I would go to work. I would talk to an employee. I would say, all right, so we're going to do this campaign. We're going to do 5 separate direct mail response. Direct response means when it lands on the desk or in the home of the person, they take action, right? A call to action that's so great that they have a direct response to your mailing. Now, this is how and then I would get partway into designing that with the person. And I would say, all right, will you say it back to me? What did you hear? Because it's amazing, Brenda. I said, go over to the left side of my garage, pick up the hoe, and meet me out front. And the person heard, meet me out front. We'll go over to the garage and grab the hoe together. What? So I started learning people, just because maybe I also learned how to communicate more clearly. I was a producer of confusion, not harmony. So I worked on that. Then I started saying, and could you just recite that back to me? What did you hear? And this is just to ensure we're on the same page, that we have an agreement, that we're both gonna do our part in this agreement. And the person would, and I got better. The person heard me better. Our relationship got stronger.
Yes. Yes. That's amazing, Charlie. And that's what we do in coaching when we do active listening, is somebody else share something that's going on with them, and I will repeat it back to them. So what I'm hearing is,
Yeah.
And then the person feels heard, they feel validated, and then they have an opportunity to correct me if I have not understood what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My needs are just as important as your needs. And mirroring is a wonderful thing to do. I mean, in
Yeah.
sales, this is a massive amount of training that we go through and that I've trained a lot. It's, how to speak to the conversation going on in the mind of your client, your prospect, and how to convert that conversation to a sale. Whoops.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're about at time here. What do you think?
We are. What a great podcast, Charlie. Got a little worked up today. It was great.
Well, you know what, Brenda? That's because I was listening.
So I'm going to throw out a couple of chats before we go. So Trish says, we are the barriers and we are the solution. Dead on, Trish. And she also loved your Henry Ford quote. That is a great quote. And I've heard it before from you. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. It's a great way to end the podcast. See you next week.
And don't forget, are you listening? I'm just kidding. Please share this, like this, so Brenda and I are happier. And, do whatever you do. But most of all, thank you for attending. And we will see you next Saturday, God willing.
Well, yes, we will. Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.